Hello. I know I've not been on the YouTubes or any like for a while. I've had a bit of poor health. I had like a head cold thing, which progressed into like some sort of infection in my chest. I ended up coughing up. Well, I ended up coughing up blood for a while. The coughing was like very violent. So violent, so much that I blew out the my left eardrum. And because I was coughing and doing so much like that, my throat's all tore to shit. And that became what the doctor described as ulcerated, which is pretty bad. I've had like 3 courses of antibiotics. I've had nose spray to clear the pressure out of my ears. Because you can't go in through the ear to clear it, you have to go through the nose because it's like inner ear pressure and that shit. But the nose spray tasted like cat piss. Sorry, smelled like cat piss, not tasted. I've never actually experienced the taste of cat piss. Well, I've drank Budweiser, so that's about as close as you get to cat piss. Anyway, the nose spray was fucking awful. They then give me a spray for the throat that basically numbs the throat. That's been pretty good. I can actually like talk now. Uh, so yeah, I had to take time off work because I just wasn't fit to do anything. I'm kind of feeling a bit more human back at the minute. I won't say I'm back to fighting fitness because it's definitely not back to fighting fitness. The coughing up blood stopped, which is a plus. I still have like the feeling that I'm kind of like deaf in the left hand side, and apparently that will go away over time. It'll just take time to go away. The numbing spray for my throat's pretty good. It kind of helps me talk. I couldn't eat food for going on 10 days, which I mean I'm hardly gonna fucking waste away, but it wasn't pleasant. You know, I have to take meds every morning and evening just because I'm reliant on meds. And trying to swallow pills was a barrel of fucking laughs. You know, there's nothing like swallowing your meds to puke them up, to try and pick them out of the puke, to swallow them again, to try and force them down. Uh, so yeah, it's been 3 weeks of not very much fun. But I'm getting the thing with the ear. The last time I was speaking with the doctor, he was fit to look at the ear and he was going, it's healing, it'll get better. You know, you're gonna feel that pressure in your head for a while, maybe a couple of weeks more, and basically it feels like my ear constantly like popping, and it's like that pressure that builds up before it pops, and it's actually quite painful. I mean, blowing out an eardrum is fucking painful, and yeah, it's not done anything for my mood. You know, it's not helped me with dealing with people. So rather than deal with people, I had to just take time off work because I couldn't deal with people. I am I try to be professional and be like a happy guy, but when I'm hurting, you just don't want to be near me. You just want to leave me alone and let me hurt. Um, it was that bad at one point. My wife was like, "Right, we're gonna put you in the car and take you to A&E," and I'm like, "No, just gonna fucking be a man and tough it out." So yeah, 3 weeks of fun in the Scobie household. So I haven't been fishing, obviously. I haven't really felt fit to fish. I did last weekend. You know, uh, we did make it into like in a skill in to do some shopping and bits and pieces. So I was all kind of walking around, but I'm walking around. I feel like absolute dog shit. Uh, Trying to go to lunch, trying to eat food, trying to do anything. You know, it's like every time you swallow, it just feels like there's glass in your throat. So every time it feels like instead of swallowing like something soft like soup, it felt like you were swallowing lava coated razor blades, which was fucking amazing. So yeah, it's not been fun, but I should be back at it pretty soon. Um, the other plus that happened while in this time of trying to deal with being fucked up, the DVLA contacted me about my road tax for my van, which was interesting. I pay for my road tax direct debits every month, and because Northern Ireland, the MOT system here is shite. It's fucking shite. In the mainland, you could just get your van or your car serviced at a local garage and they'll MOT it for you, and it's all nice and easy. Here in Northern Ireland, because it's fucking stupid, we have to take the car to a specific government agency to MOT it, and there's that much of a backlog that by the time you get the letter saying it's time to renew your MOT, you're already, like, I got the letter in the middle of March. I think it was like the 18th or 15th of March. And as soon as I got the letter, I went onto the internet and tried to book an MOT appointment. Now, the middle of March telling me that my MOT runs out at the end of May. So I'm thinking, okay. So technically, you'd be thinking, I have the rest of March, I have all of April, and I have all of May to get an MOT, so it should be fucking easy. No, the nearest MOT to Omagh, where I live, was actually in Enniskillen, and it was going to be for the 24th of June. So I figured, okay, I spoke to a traffic policeman that I know that I'm friendly with, and he was going, as long as you have the MOT booked, everything is cool. It's like, okay. So I'm thinking, okay, everything is cool. Then I get a letter from the DVLA saying, because you pay by direct debits monthly, once your MOT runs out, your vehicle's not taxed. So I phoned them up, whilst a fucking minging, horrible headache and sore throat was wrecking me. And well, the DVLA are as useless as fucking tits on fish. They are fucking terrible. They're absolutely useless. That goes for DVLA in Northern Ireland out at Castle Rock, and it goes for DVLA in Wales. I seriously hope Boris Johnson privatises the fuck out of you and sacks all of you, you useless cunts. First wanker I speak to says, yeah, Mr. Scobie, not a fucking problem, son. What we'll do is we'll extend your tax date to your MOT date, and then everything will be cool. Let me just transfer you through to that department, and we'll get it sorted out for you. So I was like, okay, awesome. He comes back on the phone and says, unfortunately, I'm having trouble transferring you, but here's the number, phone this number. Okay. Phone the number, got speaking to another person who said the exact fucking opposite to what the first person said. Like, okay, give me another number to phone. Phone that number. Got another person that just didn't have a fucking clue what day of the week it was. They didn't know whether they were on Earth or fucking Mars. And they gave me a different number to phone, which was the DVLA back in Northern Ireland. Now, before I phoned anybody, I phoned the DVLA in Northern Ireland thinking, they're bound to know the score. They live in Northern Ireland. They know the MOTs here are shite. They were a fucking special degree of uselessness. This utter mong that answered the phone to me, I don't know whether he wore fucking Velcro trousers because he fucking get complicated by a zip. I then had another attempt at phoning DVLA in Wales, and I had some absolute drippy bitch be really sarcastic with me, and I'm like, at this point, my sense of humour is gone, my tolerance for retards is gone, I'm fucking annoyed. Then I just said, put me on the phone to your fucking supervisor at this minute now. And I got speaking to some guy, and he was actually quite nice. Long story short, he basically said, there's fuck all that you can do. Take your van off the road to the end of the month. And I went, okay, so what does that mean? He goes, basically, source your vehicle to the end of the month, get it through the MOT, retax it then. I said to him, thank you for being fucking honest with me, but that's not going to work. I have to fucking drive to where I work. I just can't fucking not go to work. I can't not have a vehicle for a fucking month. And he went, not going to tell you lies. That's the fucking story. Deal with it. I was like, oh shit. So a phone call whilst I was sick really, really helped the temper and the mood, and my I was quietly raging. I ended up speaking to a friend of mine that works in a uh, one of the local tire places, garage places, WW Tires. I'm going to put their link in this video because they are fucking awesome people. WW Tires, spot on service. Every time I went near WW Tires for anything, be it tires or batteries or get a car service, they have sorted me out, and it has been awesome. Never an issue with them. Spoke with them and they went, bring the van to us. We'll speak to our contacts and we'll speak to the MOT centre. We'll get you a cancellation. We'll get the van put through. I was like, okay. Dropped the van off to them. They got the cancellation. Put the van through the MOT. It sailed through the MOT. There was fuck all wrong with the van because they keep the van good. It's always serviced. It's always looked after. You know, it's a van from, like, it's old now. It's an old van. You know, it's a 2009 VW Caddy. It's an older vehicle. Sailed through the MOT without issue. Spoke with Ryan. Ryan said this is how much it cost. Sorted out. Happy to pay it. It was excellent service. He wrote to me, this is what we did before we put it through the MOT. You know, the standard check that it needs in the MOT, standard checks that it needs for an MOT, the service that it needs, everything like that there. Boom. Paid the money. Awesome service. So at least the van is back on the road. So I thought, I get home. I said, right, I'm going to phone up the tax people here and get back taxed. Get the tax back on for the vehicle. And the first thing they asked me was the letter with like a 16-digit code. And I'm like, I don't have that letter. You know, I got the fucking the tax forms and I signed them at the time and it just continued on from last year with paying monthly direct debit. And she went, oh, you need to phone this department. And I'm like, oh, no. And I went through about 4 different departments. To eventually somebody spoke to me and they said, look, go online, take your V5 from your vehicle registration, use the registration number and the code that's on it, go online and you can tax the vehicle like you just bought a brand new vehicle. It won't make a difference. Just tick monthly direct debits. They'll take a direct debit out like 15 days later. Then the rest of the time it'll be like every month on like the 1st or 2nd. And I sat there thinking, okay, thanks for being like useful and honest. Why the fuck were the numerous people that I spoke to before this, why were they this fucking useless? Why didn't they just say the same thing that guy said? Why didn't they just say, okay, Mr. Scobie, we can't fucking help you, son. What you have to do is take your vehicle registration document, go online, click tax vehicle, click tax with V5, and rock and roll. 5 minutes online. Versus, you know, an hour and a half on phones trying to get through to the fucking idiots, then passed from bits to pillar to fucking post. So no, I don't like dealing with the DVLA, you know, or like government agencies. I don't like dealing with them. I find, no harm to civil servants. There are good ones out there. I've worked with good ones in the past. But there are fucking useless ones out there. And there are people in the civil service that I just believe they honestly get a kick out of fucking the people around. Because they just don't care. They can't be sacked. They're on a decent wage. They're going to get a pension at the end of it. They don't give a fuck. And unless they seriously fuck things up, they're never going to get sacked. They can't be sacked. They're that much tied in with the union. They can't sack these bastards. You know, I worked in the public prosecution service here in Northern Ireland, and the only reason they were taking on 0 hours contract agency staff was because their own staff that were Northern Ireland civil servants were off sick that much. Now, while I was there in the office, there was a member of staff that was sick for nearly 2 years. With stress. 2 years. Paid 2 years. Would come to work a couple of weeks, and then go, oh, stressed, back off for another year. And it's like, what the fuck has this been allowed? You know, and then I actually applied. This is leading off to another tangent. I applied when I left the military to join the civil service. They send you like an internet test, like an aptitude test. And it went okay. Filled out the aptitude test, did the aptitude test, scored 98.5%. Felt pretty good. 98.5%. Clearly, I'm not fucking as stupid as I look. 98.5%. Email came back a day later saying, thanks for the aptitude test, we'll let you know. A month later, an email comes back and says, someone that scored higher on the test than you has been accepted to go to the interview. You have been unsuccessful. And I'm like, they got, okay, it's not infallible. 98.5%, that still leaves 1.5% of a score that you could do better on. But I didn't even get to the interview. In Northern Ireland, the civil service was advertising for people from like my background because Northern Ireland is fucking retarded. The employment laws are retarded. There has to be like a representation of 50-50. There has to be 50% unionist, 50% nationalists. That's just the fucking way it works here. It's fucking jobs for boys and it's retarded. But that was one occasion. And from speaking to people that are civil servants, they will openly admit to you that they are, why would they go and work in the private sector? They don't have to work hard. They get paid a decent wage. Their wages will always go up. And they'll always get, they always have a union to back them up and to say, can't fucking touch me, I'm in the union. Can't sack me, I'm in the union. Unless they seriously fuck up, and even then they don't sack them, they get like fucking told off and moved somewhere. Like we had an incident in Northern Ireland where the Department of like the DERA guys, the government department for like agriculture, they had a vet who was screaming that there was foul practices happening to some part of the industry. And this vet went to her boss, and her boss basically fucked her off and says, look, stupid woman, go away. She went, well, no, I'm not a stupid woman. I'm correct. I know what I'm doing. She went above her boss to the next level of management, and he kind of laughed at her and went, yeah, hey, fuck off, woman. What do you know? So she took them to a tribunal, and she won. Now, from the evidence that she was fit to provide, it's no fucking excuse. There's no doubt that what she was reporting needed to be reported. It was like malpractice on a fucking big level. So she was fit to report this, and she took them to a tribunal, and she won. She was given something like £1.3 million in compensation for like the harassment. They ended up bullying her till she ended up having to quit her job. So she got like £1.3 million in compensation. Fair play to that young lady. She shouldn't have been bullied. She shouldn't have been belittled just because she was a woman. And they should have took her concerns seriously, and they should have fucking addressed them, especially when it came to animal welfare. I have no tolerance for that shit. I don't care if they're like tall, short, fat, thin, male, female. If they're coming to you as an expert in the field and saying shit needs sorted out, well then shit needs sorted out. To shine her off and fuck her off and then bully her to the point where she quits her job, that's wrong. Now, the fact that she got compensation of that amount, she deserved that. However, it stings like fuck because that money basically comes from me and you, the taxpayer. And the two people that fucked her off and bullied her and caused this issue where we had to spend £1.3 million of taxpayer money, did they get sacked? Fuck no! They just got moved to different positions. One of them got a fucking promotion. That's the problem with the system we have here. I'm not a fan of like the fucking Boris Johnson guy. But when you have civil servants in places like Downing Street and the Ministry of Defence, I seen the Ministry of Defence civil service how they acted in Whitehall. And they acted like they knew more than the actual experts in the field, i.e. the high-ranking brass from the Air Force, Navy and Army that were there going, this is how shit gets done, this is what we need. And you'd have civil servants that throwing some fucking crazy money going, yeah, fuck off. We know what we're doing. And it's like, they called it the Borg, like out of the fucking Star Trek thing. where you couldn't get past them, you couldn't get around them, you couldn't go through them, you couldn't work with them, and you can't get anything done without them. And they just muddied up the system, gunked up the machine, and things stopped getting done. Perfect example, the rifle we ended up with, the Heckler, that ended up the SA80. This went through 3 iterations to get to the point where the rifle is actually fucking good. And the scary thing is, when you took that weapon and you give it to someone that was actually on the weapon testing team and it was being introduced to replace the SLR, they basically went around the different infantry units and selected firearms experts and said, this is the new potential rifle, test it out, let me know what you think. And they come back and went, this is good, this is not so good, this is good, this is not so good. And they came back with another version of it. And they all went, yeah, this was alright. That rifle was then sent to the MOD where they went, no, it was fucking too expensive. Let's fucking chop, and cheapen it down. So we ended up with the SA80, the A1 version, that jammed when you fucking looked at it. It was shit rifle. It fucking failed to operate in Northern Ireland, it failed to operate in the Gulf, it failed to operate pretty much everywhere else around the fucking world. And the MOD was there going, well, fucking deal with it. The Ministry of Defence civil servants were like, fuck it, deal with it. Cue much tantruming and much fucking rage from the Ministry, from the actual people, the actual armed forces. And the weapon got took away, and it got redesigned by Heckler and Koch. And it got sent back out, and the A2 version still had issues, but it was a fucking different rifle from the A1 version. Incidentally, I know one of the guys that was on the weapons testing team. He was in the Royal Irish Regiment. Good guy, good solid guy. He was fit to say that the weapon they got for the A2 variant was pretty much identical to the weapon that they okayed back in the day. He was fit to say that this looks pretty much like what we said at the time. This is what we need. It had the better springs, it had the better gas system, it was beefier, it was a bit more fucking solid as opposed to the rickety piece of shit the A1 was. Most importantly, it didn't fucking jam if you went boo at the fucking thing. The A3 version of it just changed the handguard and did some other bits and pieces that wasn't too fucking much different. Didn't really affect the mechanics of it. It was more so the outside that you could put lasers and different optics onto like a rail system, like a Picatinny rail system. But that's what we deal with here. You deal with people that I don't understand them. Now again, I'm not bitching about civil servants. I know civil servants that are I've got civil servants that are my friends, that go to work, do their job, admit that it's a shit state, and take the paycheck and go home. The civilians that work on military bases, 99% of them are fucking solid people. Great people. People that I would invite to my wedding, call my friend, But when you get the bad one, this is actually the nickname for the SA-80 rifle that the Ministry of Defence thought was what the British Armed Forces needs. The ground troops, the people in the military, the Air Force, Army, Navy, they nicknamed this rifle the Civil Servant because you couldn't sack it, you couldn't get fucking rid of it. It's going to be interesting because the Americans have now changed their M4s to a weapon that fire, I think it's a 6.5 caliber, so it's a bit bigger than 5.56. They basically went and done something of their own. So they basically said to NATO, look, 5.56 is shit. Can't do the 5.56 no more. We want a heavier caliber round. And it's like a circular argument. It's like, when I first joined the Air Force, there was older guys that fired SLRs. It was a 7.62 round. They were going, the SLR, when you're hit with the SLR, you're dead. That's it. There's dead. You're as fucking dead as a maggot. Dead. 5.56, smaller round. It was designed to injure you. The theory being, if they're fighting, if the fucking Chinese are coming over the hill and you've got hundreds of Chinese, you're going to shoot the Chinese person, the German, or not the German, we're friendlies with them now, the Russians, and they're going to fall, and they're going to scream, make a lot of noise, and it's going to take 2 people to carry that one person off the battlefield. That was the thinking, that was the military theory, passed down by some expert in the fucking field of military technology and military thinking and planning and tactics. Then we went to Afghanistan and Iraq, where we fought an enemy that didn't care about their comrade. If their comrade was shot, they went, oh well, it's God's Allah Inshar, God's will, move on. And they realised that the 5.56 wasn't really good because the jihadis were wearing body armour. And 5.56 wasn't going through the body armour. So they ended up bringing out designated marksman rifles that were firing a heavier caliber to punch through the armour. And again, you go from like, let's change the wheel, let's keep fucking changing the wheel and hoping that the wheel comes out differently and it's not the same fucking circular shape. And it's the same argument. You'll hear people going, oh well, it's a bigger round, it's a heavier ammunition, you're not going to be able to carry as much of it. It's like, okay, that makes point, that makes sense. Sucks to be if you have to carry it. Fucking just, do you think the average troop on the ground gets to fucking cry about how much ammunition they have to carry? You just get told fucking deal with it and man up. 20 years later, when your back's fucked and your knees are gone and your hips are gone, that's not connected to your military service. This has been nearly half an hour of fucking angry me. Anyway, I'm feeling a little bit more human. I should be back out angling pretty soon. It'll not be this weekend. It'll probably be maybe next weekend. I don't even know where I'm going to go or what I'm going to fish for next weekend. But it should be next weekend. So, thanks to everyone that sent me messages, asking, how am I, how's things getting on, blah, blah, blah. I apologise for not being active on like YouTube and the Instagram and the Facebook and everything. To the guys that said, is there a way to kind of contribute to the videos, like sponsorship and stuff like that there? No, I don't have sponsorship for the videos. I don't really do that. There is a Ko-Fi thing there. The link will be in the description below if you want to kind of buy me a cup of coffee or something like that there. That's there. It's like a Patreon thing, but it's not a Patreon thing. I wouldn't use Patreon. Apart from that, I'm not really wanting your money. I don't really want it. So, just like and subscribe if you haven't already, or like the video, or leave a comment. That's all I really am after. I don't really want folks' money. If you're one of these people that's out there that's fucking mental enough in the head that wants to go that way, then that's there. The Ko-Fi's there. Everyone that sent me stuff on Ko-Fi, thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Really, really thank you. You're clearly not right in the head, but thank you anyway. I don't even know what else to say, guys. I'm just kidding. But I mean, like, this thing that's hit me, it hasn't been COVID, by the way. It's not been the Wu flu. I've not been infected by that, because every time I've fucking coughed or sneezed, Mrs. Scobie's come at me with a fucking swab up my nose and in my face, and it's like, no, it's not COVID. It's like, yeah. So it's not been COVID. It's just been like a shit thing that's caused, that's extra. So it's been like a flu that's triggered an infection, that's blew out an ear, that's caused the throat fucked up. It's like, so if anything, not being able to eat for a while, it'll make me less of a fat bastard. So that's always a fucking plus, eh? But I will be back out angling soon, guys. Thanks for all the well wishes. I love you all. And until the next time, I'll see you all later.